Imagine that each of your thoughts, every action you take, and every emotion you cultivate is an invisible coin dropping into the eternal vault of your soul. This is not poetic metaphor. It is a deep, ancient, and living law. In this journey, we will cross the veil that separates the visible from the hidden, the material from the spiritual, to explore the forgotten wisdom of karma, the force that weaves the threads of your destiny. Based on the mystical teachings of Helena Blavatsky, this text speaks not only of wealth in its worldly form, but of sacred wealth, the kind that transcends gold and possessions and is forged in the invisible realms of consciousness. What is the true value of the soul? How is it earned, lost, or transformed? And how does karma act as a cosmic scale, keeping the account of the eternal? Prepare yourself for a spiritual voyage that will awaken ancient memories, reveal universal laws, and show you that true abundance is born in the secret alchemy between your soul and the universe. You have been called. The coin of the soul is already in your hands. Initial treatise. To whom does this work belong, and to whom does it not? O you who open these pages, halt if your intent is selfish gain. Turn back if you seek formulas to amass gold without redemption. This book is not for soul merchants, nor for those who seek wisdom to wear it like a cloak of pride. This book is for those who have seen, if only for a moment, the chain of births and deaths woven by their own hands. It is for those who wish to understand why wealth comes to some and misery to others, not as punishment or reward, but as a reflection of the sacred balance of cause and effect. Warning: reading this book without preparation may awaken dormant knots in your personal karma. It will open doors you cannot close and may ignite fires in your descendants. If you are not willing to transmute your entire life, put it down now. The common man sees in a coin the glint of sunlight on metal. The disciple, however, sees in that same coin a wheel of fire spinning between worlds. No value is accidental, no coin, and no era without cause. Every piece of bread, every palace, every debt, every crumb, every wage is the visible result of invisible deeds. Just as the soul clothes itself in flesh to walk the cycle of births, karma cloaks itself in economic circumstances to test human consciousness on the material plane. Money, therefore, is an arcane language, a syllable of the universal verb spoken in human cipher, condensed energy, bearer of intention, a crystal that reflects the deeds not only of the one who possesses it, but of the one who uses it, fears it, or despises it. The ancient sages did not hoard riches because they understood that everything possessed also possesses the possessor. And yet, those who knew how to let go of every coin were the only ones capable of handling wealth without being stained by it, for even the purest gold defiles when touched by impure hands. In these pages, I shall reveal what no accountant nor modern economist has ever suspected, that money is condensed karma, and its flow is governed by hidden laws more rigorous than any tax code. He who steals pays, he who gives receives, but not by human laws, rather by the balances of the soul. Introduction and the money that cannot be seen. He who looks upon money with a profane gaze sees only metal struck by decree of human authority. But one who has received secret instruction and pierced the veils of the causal world knows that every material manifestation of value is the final reflection of invisible energies, of karmic dynamic flows that pass through the ethers, shaping outward circumstances according to subtle causes sown in the unseen plane. There is no gold, no paper, no number that is not first an act, a vibration, a decree of the soul in its eternal journey. He who seeks wealth without understanding this truth is trapped in the illusory web of Maya, and though he may hoard treasures, he remains poor in spirit, for he knows not the law. The economy of the visible world, as taught by men of accounting and commerce, is but a blurred shadow of the true hidden economy that governs exchanges between souls, lineages, nations, and eons. In that vibratory economy, every voluntary action carries a causal value that will, sooner or later, be collected or returned in some form: health or illness, abundance or ruin, birth or loss. This law, feared and denied by the ignorant, was known by the Atlantean sages, the Brahmins of the Satya Yuga, the initiates of the Nile, and the brethren of the desert. It declares that the flow of money is not mechanical but magical, not dictated by supply and demand, but by invisible merits, invisible debts, and accumulated intentions. Therefore, this treatise has not been written for bankers, merchants, or moneylenders of this dark age, but for the disciples of the path, those who must act in the world, handle coins, contracts, inheritances, and properties, yet not fall into the mirage of possession. To them, and to them alone, the esoteric science of money is now revealed, so they may operate in samsara without drowning in it, trade without being possessed, give without being enslaved, and ultimately sever every tie with the need to accumulate. For until the soul is freed from the magnetism of money, it cannot fly toward its true home. The coin of the soul, based on the teachings of Helena Blavatsky. We have noticed that over 80% of visitors to our channel are not subscribed. You can support this project by pressing the subscribe button and liking the video. Thank you for inspiring us to continue creating more and better content for you. Are you ready to transform your life? Chapter 1, The Seed of Value. On how acts of intention generate the seed that will later manifest as fortune or lack. Whoever wishes to understand the law of value must forever abandon the vulgar notion that wealth or poverty is the result of random circumstances, merely external decisions, or some supposed arbitrary luck. There is no such thing as luck in a universe governed by the Logos. Every atom vibrates within a web of immutable correspondences, and every manifestation of value, be it a coin landing in one's hand, the signing of a contract, or the inheritance of a property, has been previously caused by an act, a choice, an intentional impulse born beyond the visible world. Intention is the archetypal matrix of all material results. In the hidden planes where the threads of karma and dharma are woven, no work is done with metals or numbers, but with vibrations. There, each thought is a spark, each desire a current, and each intention a seed. The intention charged with will is like a seed cast into the causal field of the universe. That seed, according to its vibratory quality, will attract akin elements from the mental and astral planes, and will eventually manifest in dense matter as a tangible effect: wealth or want, abundance or need. The ignorant who does not know this law lives in constant confusion. When he prospers, he believes himself fortunate. When he falls into poverty, he sees himself as a victim. And so he wanders from incarnation to incarnation, without understanding that everything that befalls him is a rigorous consequence of his own invisible sowings. But the disciple of ancient wisdom knows that there is no effect without cause, no sowing without harvest. He studies his own intentions as the farmer studies the seed before placing it in the soil. He knows that a selfish intention, even wrapped in good outward deeds, creates chains, and that a pure intention, though it may produce no immediate results, transforms the inner worlds and creates harmonious conditions in the future. This is why true wealth begins in the mind and heart of man, not in the superficial sense some modern preachers insinuate, but in a deep, esoteric sense. Thought charged with will is a creative force, and that force, if sustained, polarizes the subtle fields and gives rise to circumstances that reflect it. Every human action, even the smallest, contains a hidden intention. Most men act from automatism, and their intentions are not conscious. That is why they reap confusion, disorder, and repeat cycles of scarcity again and again. The adept, however, never acts without awareness. He asks himself before acting, from what part of me does this desire arise? If it arises from the lower ego, from fear, greed, pride, or comparison, he knows he is sowing dense karma. If it arises from the higher self, from vision, disinterested generosity, service, or the call of the individual soul, then he acts with firmness, knowing the sowing will be light. The Gospel of Thomas, preserved in the desert by wise hands free of dogma, declares, "If you bring forth what is within you will save you. If you do not bring it forth, what is within you will destroy you." This veiled affirmation contains the esoteric key to value. What is within is the intention, and if it is aligned with the soul, it will produce causal fortune. If misaligned, it will lead to poverty even if gold is acquired. Modern science, limited by external senses, has developed theories of value based on labor, production, and demand, but all of them ignore the hidden plane. The Book of Faith, older than any human treatise, teaches that before gold shines on the earth, it must first shine in the soul of the one who attracts it. This should not be interpreted poetically, but literally. There is a vibratory correspondence between the inner state of being and the goods conferred or withheld. No fortune is sustained without invisible merit, and no misfortune is free from deep causes, whether of this life or past ones. A soul may inherit wealth, yes, but if it does not possess the right intention, that wealth will become its ruin. Another may be born into misery, but if it has sown high intention, it will find doors open that no man can shut. Intention creates invisible paths through which opportunities flow, and these paths cannot be forged by appearances or artifices. For intention to be a fertile seed, it must be joined to conscious will and vibratory constancy. To think of wealth today and fear poverty tomorrow is like watering a seed with pure water in the morning and with poison at night. Most men do not sustain their intentions and therefore do not harvest. They change desires with the fluctuation of their emotions, and each change dismantles what they had begun to build. In the ancient ashrams of the Himalayas, disciples were taught to form intention as one forms a mantra, with rhythm, with inner silence, with detachment from the fruits, and with elevated vision. That intention was charged with the light of the third eye and then left to rest in the causal plane, where it began to attract the elements of its manifestation. Thus did the masters of value operate, not with gold or numbers, but with pure energy shaped by will. They also taught that impure intention, born of fear, manipulation, the desire to dominate or hoard, had disastrous consequences. Not only did it fail to generate lasting wealth, but it created a negative astral current that trapped the soul in cycles of lack, debt, or dissatisfaction. The greedy moneylender, the deceitful merchant, the heir who scorns the source of his fortune, all of them were destined to sow poverty into their karmic future, even if the present showed them as prosperous. For impure intention corrupts the causal field, and what flourishes today will wither tomorrow if its root is rotten. The true disciple, by contrast, practices the economy of the soul. Each day he examines his desires, his thoughts, his impulses, and separates the wheat from the chaff. If he discovers a noble desire, he feeds it with calm action. If he finds an impure impulse, he transmutes it into higher energy. He does not wait for immediate rewards, for he knows karmic time is not governed by the clocks of the world. The seed of value does not act immediately like thunder after lightning. Sometimes a lifetime passes, sometimes 7, before intention bears fruit. That is why the wise do not grow impatient. They know the law is infallible, and that every pure intention will become a blessing sooner or later. They do not beg, they do not plead, they do not manipulate, they only sow and wait. There are men who have never stolen and yet are poor, and there are thieves who possess fortunes. The profane do not understand this and say the world is unjust. But the theosophist understands. He knows the current thief is harvesting a noble seed once sown, and that the honest poor man is settling an ancient debt. He also knows that present intention transforms the future cycle. Each thought is a vibratory decree the universe will pay or charge at its appointed time. Thus unfolds the wisdom of the seed of value. It is not the external act that creates wealth, but the vibratory cause that precedes it. Not the labor, but the consciousness behind it. Not the talent, but the intention that sustains it. On the path of the adept, every act of intention is a magical operation. Whether he sows compassion, service, beauty, knowledge, or righteousness, he is generating hidden value. That invisible value today will become a magnet tomorrow, and what the world calls a miracle will be for him simple causal justice. Chapter 2. The Lender's Karma. An examination of the hidden bond between the one who gives money and the one who receives it. Debts that transcend lifetimes. Among the many forms of bondage that the human soul may weave during its journey through the illusory world of matter, none is more subtle, more persistent, or more penetrating than that which arises from the act of lending or receiving money. At first glance, such an exchange seems to belong solely to the legal and social realm. Yet in the hidden reality, where every vibration generates an echo in the inner planes, a loan is a magical pact, a vibratory link that binds two souls with threads that stretch not only across time, but through the intermediate planes of karma. When one being gives money to another, it is not merely a material transfer, it is an act of will inscribed in the etheric records. That act, depending on its motivation, the nature of its intention, and the state of the recipient's soul, may become a chain or a blessing, a karmic debt, or a channel of liberation. The Zohar teaches, "He who gives binds his soul to the one who receives. If he gives without wisdom, he joins in their fall. But if he gives with light, he partakes in their redemption." This veiled and profound teaching reveals that the lender is responsible not only for the sum given, but for the spiritual destiny of the action itself. It is not the money that matters, but the vibratory bond created between souls. To be pure, a loan must be given without attachment to its return. Only then is it elevated to the status of a dharmic act. But when it is accompanied by expectation, pressure, interest, or a desire for control, it becomes a magnetic tie that forces the lender to return, life after life, to settle or reclaim the debt. For the universe does not recognize notarial contracts. It recognizes vibrational pacts. And if that pact is woven from the lower ego, it will create dense cords that persist beyond death, reincarnating in unforeseen circumstances. There are souls who return again and again as siblings, spouses, or adversaries, just to settle an ancient loan. A debt of gold may be reborn as a debt of blood, protection, or care. He who once lent with greed may now be born as the servant of the one who received, and the one who once received with ingratitude may now incarnate as protector of the one who once helped them. The karma of the lender is a dance of roles, where money is but the outer garment of an invisible commitment. In the ancient Egyptian temples, the hierophants warned the initiates of the dangers of lending without wisdom. They taught that every loan is a magical act, creating an egregore, a vibrational entity that persists until the cycle of return is complete. If the loan was given with purity, the egregore rises and dissolves. But if given with greed or attachment, it descends and feeds on both lender and borrower, generating circumstances of suffering, ruin, or conflict in future lives. The Marahotami once wrote in a sacred letter, "Every debt incurred without awareness is a shackle that binds the soul to the wheel of rebirth. That wheel cannot be broken unless the desire that set it spinning is transmuted." This should not be read as condemnation of lending, but as a warning. The act of giving must be accompanied by discernment, and the act of receiving by gratitude and responsibility. The modern lender, who sees himself as a benefactor for simply offering money, is unaware of the hidden consequences of his action. If he lends expecting excessive gain, he becomes an etheric vampire, and his material wealth becomes spiritual poverty. If he lends without discerning the soul of the recipient, he may strengthen the other's dark karma and share in their fate. But if he lends with detachment, with clear intention and conscious giving, then his action becomes a channel of balance, and the one who receives, if they do so with abuse, deceit, or no desire to return, becomes a karmic thief. Though human justice may remain silent, dharmic justice will manifest as loss, illness, or downfall. For there is no theft graver than that of the invisible bond of trust. He who breaks that bond sows poverty in his subtle bodies and will attract scarcity until he repays not only the material sum, but the vibration of disloyalty. The karma of the lender and the borrower does not end with the material transaction. Sometimes a soul receives financial help from another in one life, and in the next incarnates to return it as a spiritual guide, a nurse, a mother, or a loyal friend. In the higher worlds, there is no separation between the material and the spiritual. Every exchange creates a debt, and every debt must be purified. In the hidden asams of Tibet, disciples were not allowed to receive financial aid without first undergoing an inner ceremony of conscious acceptance. There, they were taught that to receive is also an art, and that all reception without gratitude generates a shadow. True gratitude is not emotion, it is vibration. It is the recognition of the bond and the will to balance it. This is why the adept does not lend out of habit or social pressure. He weighs the other's intention, and if he sees that the loan will strengthen their dharma, he gives without expecting return. But if he sees that it will empower the lower ego, he refrains, even if gold rests in his hands. For he knows that lending poorly is like giving fire to a child. It may burn them both. One must not confuse the act of helping with the act of strengthening another's karma. There are times when lending money is correct and dharmic, and others when it interferes with the soul lesson of the recipient. The wise lend when the intention of the borrower vibrates in truth. Otherwise, they become accomplices in their fall. There are also invisible loans, when we give attention, energy, words, or time to another. These are even more dangerous, for their chords are subtler. He who gives without discernment will be absorbed by the astral field of the receiver. Thus, the true occultist guards even their own energy, lending it only where vibrational harmony exists. The solution, then, is not to stop lending, but to learn to do so wisely. The lender must act as a channel of the Logos, not as an owner of wealth. He must give as the rain gives, without attachment, without expectation, and with discernment. And he must understand that his action binds him to the other through a cord that, if not transmuted, will follow him into the next rebirth. There exists an ancient practice reserved for advanced disciples, which consists in blessing the money before lending it and visualizing its return as light, not as coin. This transforms the bond into a channel of teaching and redemption. For money, when it carries a higher intention, becomes a vehicle of dharma. Thus is revealed the mystery of the lender's karma, that every act of giving or receiving creates an invisible pact, that this pact binds souls beyond life and death, and that only he who acts from the higher self can escape the wheel, by cutting the thread of desire, dominion, and fear. Chapter 3. Inheritances and Financial Curses. How inherited wealth can be karmic blessings, or invisible chains binding the soul. From the perspective of profane law, inheritance is a legitimate transfer of material assets. But from the higher vision of esoteric theosophy, every inheritance is a vibratory flow of transgenerational karma. Nothing comes to the soul without cause. No one receives fortunes without a hidden judgment inscribed in it. What the world calls luck, being born into wealth, may in truth be a subtle sentence, a golden trap, a prison of comforts that drowns the soul's impulse for liberation. Inheritance, whether it takes the form of land, coins, names, or enterprises, is never neutral. Every possession is accompanied by the psychic energy of the one who generated it, the acts that enabled its accumulation, and the emotions that surrounded it. The inherited house may be a temple or a prison. Family gold may be manna to the soul, or poison to the desires. A noble surname may be a shield of light, or a seal of curse. All depends on the causal vibration behind the legacy and on the soul that receives it. The Book of Cana affirms in its hidden verses, "Riches pass from hand to hand, but not their fire. He who receives without purification burns. He who receives and transmutes liberates." Here lies the hermetic key of this chapter. Every inheritance is dense energy that must be transmuted by the new bearer, or else they will be dragged down by the karmic whirlpools it conceals. Many heirs, ignorant of this law, plunge into wealth without reflecting on its origins or on the lives of those who forged it. If the fortune comes from unjust trade, exploitation, war, colonial plunder, or theft masked by legal contracts, then whoever receives it without cleansing its vibration becomes a bearer of foreign karma. And though they may enjoy outward comfort, their soul is darkened, bound to the cycle of compensation demanded by divine law. This is why, in the initiatic schools of the East and Egypt, every disciple who was to inherit wealth had to undergo a purification ritual before claiming it. This rite was not symbolic, but vibrational. The soul had to examine the hidden past of what it was receiving and take responsibility for its restoration. If the wealth came from the suffering of others, part of it had to be dedicated to reparation. If it was generated nobly, its vibration had to be upheld through equivalent deeds. No possession can remain in harmony if its bearer does not match, in intent, the energy with which it was created. And not only material riches are inherited, so too are invisible debts, unspoken curses, unresolved family pacts. There are entire bloodlines where the same fortune reappears and disappears in cycles because it was never transmuted. Children repeat their parents' downfalls. Grandchildren fail in the same businesses their ancestors built. All of this points to unresolved karmic inheritances, where the soul receives not to enjoy, but to redeem. In the Akashic records, every inherited object bears the imprint of its origin, emotional ties, usage, and vibrations. A ring may be a portal of light or of obsession. An estate may be a haven for dark weapons or of guardian devas. The disciple must cultivate inner vision to discern what they have received. Acceptance is not enough. It must be purified. Management is not enough. It must be elevated. The oldest Hebrew tradition preserved in the Sefer Azah teaches that sin does not die with man, but clings to his seed unto the 7th generation, unless one among them burns it with the fire of wisdom. Here lies another key. Dark inheritance is not erased by forgetfulness or rejection, but by conscious transmutation. The fire of wisdom is right action, enlightened use, detachment in administration. This is why many sages renounce inheritance, not out of contempt for matter, but from awareness of its burden. They know that if they are not prepared to purify it, it is better to let it go. This is the esoteric reason why so many saints, initiates and masters of compassion have embraced voluntary poverty, not as a superficial virtue, but as a vibratory shield, avoiding the weight of foreign karma before its time. But if the soul feels called to receive, it must first prepare, first with silence, then with meditation on the origin of the wealth. Next, through consecration. Part of the legacy must be offered in sacred act, not necessarily to external temples, but to works that restore the balance broken by its origin. This severs the curse's tether and transforms the inheritance into a vehicle of dharma. There are, however, inheritances of light, those that come from souls who accumulated without attachment, who gave more than they kept, who lived in service and created wealth with purity of intent. These legacies are channels of blessing, and those who receive them feel in their soul an expansion, a guiltless joy, an energy that propels them to multiply the good. These heirs are called in the hidden texts guardians of white karma, rare but real, recognizable by their humility, discernment, and detachment. Whoever receives wealth without asking, "Why have I been given this?" is not ready to possess it. And whoever administers it without asking, "Whom does this fortune serve?" has already begun to fall, for gold is not neutral. It is a living being on the etheric plane. It has memory. It has direction. It has will. Gold is drawn to strong souls and flees from weak ones, and if it remains in unworthy hands, it corrodes from within, until it finds its way to a new bearer. Many believe their inheritance belongs to them by blood right. They ignore that blood is only an outer manifestation of collective karma. The true right is earned in the inner worlds, and one who possesses it may be guided toward wealth without ever inheriting it, while another who lacks it may lose all that was given without apparent cause. Every lineage has an invisible guardian, This guardian, whether an ancestral diva or a master of karma, watches over the use of the legacy. If they see that the inheritance will be used to elevate, they open doors. If they see it will be used to destroy, they allow it to be scattered. The heir must seek silent inner contact with that guardian. Only then will they know what to do. If they do not, the inheritance will possess them. For inherited gold, if not purified, becomes an idol, and the idol demands sacrifice of freedom, of love, of vocation, of soul. Many have lost themselves defending a legacy that did not vibrationally belong to them. Others have been reborn again and again, bound to bloodlines they must cleanse. Thus the deeper law is revealed. Every inheritance is a trial, and every heir a servant of karma. Let those who receive do so with awareness. Let those who renounce do so with gratitude. And let all understand, nothing belongs to anyone. Everything belongs to the soul. And the soul has not come to possess, but to liberate. Chapter 4. Almsgiving as a causal currency. To give with awareness, unlike charity without discernment, shapes the soul's future. Careless giving breeds future poverty, while true giving generates light. Every coin given without consciousness is a stone thrown into the abyss of karma, directionless. But every alms given from the soul, illuminated by discernment and saturated with pure intent, is an etheric seed that will blossom into a future dawn in the hidden planes of existence. For the act of giving is not inherently a virtue or a sin. It is a magical operation, the consequence of which depends on the vibrational state of the giver, the receiver, the object transferred, and the causal intention that unites them. In the profane world, almsgiving is seen as a pious act. Many, moved by sentimental impulse, hand out coins to the poor, offerings to temples, or donations to institutions, believing they are earning merit in the celestial ledger of the Most High. But they do not know that giving without wisdom can become a source of karmic enslavement, and that superficial charity, without direction and without detachment, does not liberate, but binds. The Sefer Yetzirah teaches, "The hand that gives without knowing the name of the one who receives may sow shadows instead of light." This simple yet dreadful sentence reveals that not all giving is good, and a coin given unconsciously may feed dense egregores, reinforce negative karmas, or create parasitic etheric bonds between the soul who gives and the one who receives. Forgiving opens a channel, not just to the visible receiver, but to the invisible world surrounding them. If the recipient is possessed by dense forces, as is often the case in deep misery, addiction, crime, or vibrational degradation, then the channel becomes a route of drainage. The giver, unaware of this bond, may later suffer loss, fatigue, illness, or blockages whose cause remains hidden, yet rooted in that misguided act of charity. The masters of the Himalayas teach their disciples the sacred art of giving. They instruct that every act of donation must be preceded by inner discernment. The soul must ask, "Why do I give? Where does this impulse arise? If it comes from guilt, from the desire to appear virtuous, from external pressure, from fear of divine punishment, or from the wish to silence the conscience, then the donation is vibrationally sterile or even harmful. But if it arises from the higher soul, as a free act of service carried out with complete detachment from the outcome, then it becomes causal currency, a golden vibration stored in the Buddhic planes, awaiting its return as blessing. Almsgiving, in its esoteric essence, is not the offering of what is left over, but the conservation of a portion of vital energy to restore equilibrium. To give merely for the sake of giving is like scattering seeds to the wind without knowing the season. But to give with inner vision, to the right person, at the right moment, with pure intent, is like planting in fertile soil under the proper moon. That seed will germinate not only in the life of the receiver, but also in the causal field of the giver, who will receive, without asking, a return in the form of luminous circumstances, encounters, opportunities, insights, and intuitions. This is why ancient sages recommended that the act of giving always be preceded by meditation, even if only for a moment. The soul must collect itself and see the other not as a beggar nor a victim, nor an excuse for vanity, but as a reflection of the One. If, after such inner examination, the call to give remains, then the channel is pure, and the coin given will carry light. But if that inner check is not made, almsgiving may generate karmic entanglements. The recipient may be bound to the giver through subtle debt, and the giver may feel superior, expect gratitude, or unconsciously demand recognition. These sentiments, even if unspoken, imprint upon the vibration and contaminate the channel. Thus, the white karma of giving becomes grey, or even black, depending on the mix of intentions. The Tibetan Bardo Thodol, wrongly called the Book of the Dead, contains instructions not only for the dying, but for the living. It teaches that the soul, after leaving the body, is guided by lights of different colors. The one who gave with purity sees the white light and follows it without fear. The one who gave with selfishness sees the red light and is drawn into cycles of trial and rebirth. For even after death, alms given without wisdom bind the soul to samsara, while illuminated charity helps it cross the bridge into higher consciousness. In the monasteries of Kashmir, disciples were not allowed to give a single coin without the elder lama's permission, for they understood that every coin was a vibratory act, and excessive charity could weaken the donor's energetic field. There it was taught that the best giving is not that which offers bread, but that which teaches how to bake it, not that which momentarily satisfies, but that which awakens the soul and reveals its inner power. True almsgiving is that which uplifts. It is not always material. It can be a word, a teaching, a gaze, deep listening, or even a sustained silence. Giving, in its highest form, is to participate in the evolution of another, and for this one must know when to intervene and when to abstain. For giving too much can breed dependence, and giving to one who does not ask may be a vibrational violation. Almsgiving as causal currency only becomes such when it is free from the desire for merit, from the hunger for recognition, from false pity. The true giver gives and forgets. The left hand does not know what the right hand does, as the master of the desert taught. One gives because one sees, not because one feels. One gives because the soul impels it, not because emotion drags it. One gives from being, not from having. In the near future, which for the masters is but an echo of the eternal present, disciples of the path must learn to handle the soul's currency with greater precision. It will no longer be enough to donate to foundations or support campaigns. One must listen to the voice of the soul before each act of giving. One must consecrate, bless, and seal the vibration of each coin before it is handed over. For the world enters an era where karma accelerates, and every act produces faster and more intense effects. Those who give without discernment will be swept away by the forces they feed. Those who give with consciousness will become channels of restoration. The first will reap spiritual poverty, though they possess wealth. The second will be rich in soul, though they own nothing. For the true currency is intention, and its flow is universal. Thus the mystery of almsgiving is revealed. It is not a social, religious, or moral act, but a causal operation. Its effect does not depend on the value of what is given, but on the state of consciousness from which it is given. And only when that consciousness aligns with the higher self does almsgiving become light. Chapter 5. Usury and the Loss of the Soul. Monetary interest as an instrument of energetic vampirism. Invisible sentences that bloom in future generations. From the dawn of human trade to the intricate structures of modern capital, usury has poisoned the pure flow of exchange, corrupting the closed principle of giving and receiving into a machinery of vibrational extraction. There is no force more subtle, nor more corrosive in the esoteric economic plane than that which turns a legitimate loan into a vehicle of profit without labor, without creation, without risk or reciprocity. Usury is not merely a crime against moral economy. It is an assault on the soul, a form of black magic masked as legality. Esoteric law teaches that all circulation must be a fair return of energy. When someone lends and demands more than they gave, when they claim an interest, an increase, an additional sum whose origin is not labor, service, or cooperation, but merely time. They are, in occult terms, absorbing another's prana. This act is not neutral. It opens a parasitic channel, an etheric thread that binds the usurer to the debtor, through which not only money flows, but also vital energy. The debt becomes a vibrational wound, and interest a refined form of vampirism. The Zohar expresses it clearly. He who takes more from another than he has given, takes from their soul. He does not merely seize gold, but invisible blood. The Rigveda condemns the act with language that evokes future storms. He who charges without having sown shall be sown without harvest in his next life. These are not metaphors, but vibrational sentences inscribed in the subtle planes where justice requires no human codes. When monetary interest is imposed upon necessity, it becomes a karmic trap. The lender who charges interest does not merely become a future debtor of the soul he exploits, but also contaminates his own genetic line. For money gained through such means carries a dense vibration that adheres to the family field and impregnates it with cycles of ambition, downfall, ruin, or disharmony. Entire families may live generations in apparent prosperity, only to see their descendants fall into moral decay, mental illness, or inexplicable bankruptcies. What the outer eye cannot see is that their initial wealth was built upon the energy stolen from others. Gold earned through usury contains within it the silenced cry of the poor, the anguish of the debtor, the despair of the one who signed only to feed their children. That energy does not vanish. It accumulates in the causal field of the family and sooner or later erupts. In the secret books of the temples of Eleusis, now lost to the world, it was taught that each usurious coin emitted a dissonant tone in the astral world. If multiplied, this dissonance would generate a vibrational cloud, a pulp of greed, that clung to the aura of the usurer and followed them even after death. In their passage through Kama Loka, the soul of the usurer was besieged by the thought forms of those they had exploited. Their consciousness would be dragged through the corridors of obsession, remorse, and confusion, until centuries later they would reincarnate as a servant of the very system they once manipulated. In the oral teachings of the Magmas, passed down only in Shamala and certain hidden Himalayan ashrams, it is said that usury is one of the most refined forms of soul loss. It does not kill the body nor violate external law, but it poisons the inner spark that binds the being to its higher dharma. The usurer may appear successful, dressed in clean suits and speaking with calm voice, yet their soul drifts ever farther from the source, sinking into layers of vibration increasingly dense, increasingly estranged from light. And most terrifying of all, he who lives by usury not only condemns his own soul, but generates karmic slaves. All who grow wealthy from undeserved interest bind their debtors to their own vibrational field, preventing them from being freed until one or both break the bond through an act of redemption. That is why many banking systems, though legally respectable, are in truth etheric prisons for millions of souls, trapped not by their errors, but by the vibrational architecture of compounding interest. The law of the masters is clear. Money loaned can justly return, and may even include a reasonable gain if creation, risk, or labor are involved. But it must never become a tool for energetic exploitation. Compound interest, excessive fees, pressure upon the debtor, loans without exit. These are, from the occult perspective, acts that break the balance and generate invisible condemnations. The Buddhist tradition teaches that one who charges interest upon another's suffering will be reborn a chronic debtor, trapped in lives where nothing suffices, where all that is received slips through their fingers. The only way to break this cycle is to return more than was taken, now with the intention to liberate. The former usurer in his new life must become a protector of the needy, a guide to the fallen, a builder of justice. Only thus may he regain his lost soul. And not only individuals, but also institutions, corporations, even entire civilizations can fall under this law. Empires that rose upon usury, Babylon, Rome, certain medieval banking houses and modern structures too subtle to name, are all marked for inevitable collapse. For energetic vampirism, though cloaked in legality, always meets its counterforce. The law does not sleep. Behold then the hidden face of usury, a vibrational net that steals the world's prana. Each time a human being pays an unjust interest, a portion of their vital energy is lost. And each time another collects it, they step further from their soul. Exchange ceases to be cooperation and becomes slavery. And though both parties believe all is well, for the contracts are signed and the numbers align, in the hidden realm an exchange has occurred, light for shadow, soul for gold. The adept, therefore, cannot tolerate usury, not because he obeys an external moral code, but because his soul vibrates on another plane. He needs no law to forbid it, for he sees what the physical eye cannot perceive. He knows that every coin gained without justice is another chain, and that the only true wealth is that which does not feed on another's suffering. In ancient times, when a disciple was tempted by usury, whether direct or disguised, the master would show him his astral reflection after accepting such a coin. There he would see his face twisted, his light dimmed, his future bound. Many after that vision renounced all wealth. Others, wiser still, learned to create wealth without bondage, through service, fair exchange, and spiritual cooperation. Thus is revealed the mystery of usury and the loss of soul, that all gain without equity steals something from the soul, that monetary interest, when made a purpose, displaces the soul from the center of life, and that every coin earned through exploitation becomes later a greater loss of peace, of vision, of freedom, of soul. Chapter 6. Theft and vibrational slavery. Every act of theft generates a magnetic field that attracts suffering. Even if human justice does not punish it, the soul's law does. No thief escapes the eye that sees all, not the camera's lens nor the court's gaze, but the silent law that governs the invisible worlds. Every possession acquired without rightful cause, whether by force, deceit, manipulation, omission, or wrongful appropriation, is infused with a dissonant vibration that not only affects the bearer, but extends like an ethereal echo through the realms where karma dwells, weaving a web of unavoidable consequences. Theft, as understood by the hidden law, is not limited to the act of physical stealing. It encompasses all unauthorized appropriation of another's vital flow. One steals by taking what has not been given. One steals by withholding what was meant to be released. One steals by exploiting another's labor without fair compensation. One steals through lies, false promises, concealment, or by claiming need to receive what is not rightfully theirs. Theft is the vibration of active imbalance, and its consequence is vibrational slavery. Each act of theft generates a magnetic field of vibrational attraction. This invisible force, called klesha magnetic in certain Eastern texts, acts like a magnet for suffering, though not always directly or immediately. A thief may escape all human condemnation, live in apparent prosperity, even enjoy social respect. Yet their aura bears a fracture, a darkened zone of energy through which painful experiences will inevitably flow, not as external punishment but as inner restoration. The Dhammapada teaches, no one escapes the fruit of their deeds, not in the cave, nor in the sky, nor in the depths of the ocean. Wherever the soul goes, karma finds it. This is not poetic metaphor. It is literal. The act of theft leaves a mark on the causal body, and that mark emits a signal that resonates through the ethers. This signal attracts kindred circumstances, betrayals, losses, illness, enemies, obstacles, not as vengeance but as rebalancing. And the suffering does not end with the individual body. The entire family field, lineage, and community are affected. Theft breaks the flow of just energy and disrupts the vibrational mesh of all who surround the thief. Many children suffer strange illnesses, depressions, academic failures, simply because an ancestor stole land, titles, ideas, loves, or vows, and that theft was never transmuted. What is not redeemed is inherited. What is not confessed is paid in another's flesh. In the ancient temples of India, it was taught that the soul who steals becomes vibrationally bound to the stolen object. If the object remains in their possession, it contaminates them. If sold or passed on, the dissonance is transmitted, and if they die with it, they are reborn near it, not by desire, but by karma. There are jewels, properties, manuscripts, even songs and names that carry the energy of theft, and wherever they go, they sow unrest, discord, and misfortune. The thief becomes not only a slave to karma, but a slave to themselves. Each act of theft hardens the mental body, darkens the astral body, and knots the flow of prana. This diminishes creativity, blocks intuition, and reduces the capacity to love. Though they may gain gold, they lose light. Though they rise in the world, they descend in being. Vibrational slavery is precisely this: to live within an invisible prison, where the soul cries out but the mind cannot hear. The Bhagavad Gita hints at this truth when it says, "He who takes more than needed eats sin." This sin food is the subtle nourishment the soul steals from others, and it cannot be digested. It turns into weight, shadow, confusion. That is why many thieves suffer from constant anxiety, chronic dissatisfaction, an endless need for more. They do not know that what they seek is not more possession, but redemption. The soul's law, in its infinite balance, offers paths of liberation. Not every thief is eternally condemned. The law permits and demands restoration. There are 3 higher paths to redeem theft. First, restitution, returning the stolen good physically or symbolically, even if the other does not ask for it. This severs the main tie. Second, conscious service, compensating with deeds, time, dedication, or equivalent help. This heals the vibrational field. Third, inner confession and vibrational promise, acknowledging the act before the higher soul and vowing not to repeat it. This reorders the causal field. In the Essene initiatic schools, disciples who had stolen in past lives were assigned the task of guarding in this one. They would protect temples, watch over sacred objects, preserve manuscripts, not as punishment but as a way to re-educate their vibration. Outer vigilance gradually transformed their inner tendency to seize into an impulse to safeguard. The reverse also happens. Some souls were stolen from in past lives and are reborn with tendencies toward attachment, fear of loss, obsession with control. They suffer not because they stole, but because they never forgave. For theft to be fully redeemed, it must be released by both parties. Hence, the conscious forgiveness of the one who was robbed is also a magical operation. It frees both from the vibrational slavery field. But until restoration occurs, theft acts like a dark seed. Sometimes it blooms in the next life as financial ruin, sometimes as emotional impotence or as an inability to feel fulfillment. The stolen soul cries out from within, "This is not yours," and until the field is purified, that voice remains. The true disciple, the one who aspires to initiation, must examine life through this lens. Not only their actions, but their possessions. What have I taken that is not mine? How do I use what I have? Do I share it? Do I consecrate it? Do I transmute it? For even the selfish use of a gift, voice, beauty, knowledge, time, can be a form of vibrational theft. The adept does not hoard, he channels. He does not possess, he safeguards. He does not accumulate, he redistributes. Because he knows that nothing belongs to him, that everything is energy in transit, and that the purer its passage through him, the higher his ascent. The thief keeps the object and loses the soul. The adept gives the object and gains the universe. Thus is revealed the mystery of theft and vibrational slavery, that everything taken without soul becomes a chain, and only inner balance can break that tie. Human justice may fail, but the soul never forgets, and all that the soul steals it must one day return multiplied. Chapter 7. The Just Merchant and the Hidden Disciple. A guide for those who must negotiate without falling into the samsara of profit. In the vast theatre of the world where souls incarnate to learn, serve, purify, and ascend, not all paths lead to retreat or to the silent cloister of the Aram. There are those who, by the design of karma, must live in the marketplace, among coins, goods, contracts, and constant flows of material energy. Yet being surrounded by gold, figures, and exchanges does not necessarily mean a fall, if one possesses the sealed art of balance and the inner vision that distinguishes desire from need, profit from service, and accumulation from rightful stewardship. The just merchant is not one who turns away from money, nor one who seeks gain at all costs, but one who has learned to live within the currents of samsara without sinking into them. One who understands that every act of exchange is an opportunity to create harmony or to sow chaos, that every contract is a mirror of the soul, and every fair price is a declaration of truth. Since ancient times, the masters have instructed certain disciples to remain in the economic world, not as subjects of it, but as hidden lights that bring order where there is greed, justice where there is exploitation, and wisdom where confusion reigns. These hidden disciples of commerce do not wear robes, do not dwell in caves, nor chant mantras in public. Their prayer is a clear invoice. Their meditation is honorable conduct. Their mantra is the silent action done rightly without seeking recognition. The Zohar proclaims, "Greater is the one who weighs with fairness than the one who fasts without justice." This assertion, so contrary to exoteric thinking, holds the wisdom that every just balance is an altar, and that each act of buying or selling can be a sacred operation when carried out with full awareness of the causal flow it sets in motion. The just merchant knows that the object sold is not mere matter, but concentrated energy, that the buyer is not just a customer, but a soul with a story, that the money received is not simple currency, but vibration. If tainted with deceit or greed, it becomes an obstacle to spiritual ascent. This is why he weighs, measures, promises, and fulfills with the precision of an alchemist, knowing that each error harms not only the other, but his own vibratory field. In the secret teachings of the Ram of Aryabhata, it was taught that gold obtained through lies leaves through disease. This was not superstition, but vibratory observation. The disciple who charged more than was fair, or promised more than he delivered, would see his astral body fragment, his mind scatter, and his intuition shut down. For economic falsehood is, in esoteric terms, a fracture in the vertical line connecting the soul to its origin. Yet the opposite extreme was also warned against, the false humility that refuses all payment, all compensation, all benefit, and thus blocks the soul's energy from circulating. The just merchant accepts rightful compensation, not from ambition, but as part of universal balance. He charges what is due, receives what corresponds, and lets go of what is not his. He does not hoard out of fear, nor reject out of pride. He is like the river, passing, nourishing, and continuing onward. The key is intention. Two merchants may sell the same item at the same price, but only one is just if his intention is clear. One may sell to serve, the other to dominate. One may seek the customer's well-being, the other their submission. The external act is the same, but the karma generated is not, for the law does not judge the act, but its vibration. Therefore, the disciple who must negotiate must train in the art of seeing beyond the visible. Before closing a deal, he must quiet his mind and ask his soul, whom does this exchange serve? Am I sowing balance or imbalance? Do I see the other as a being or as an opportunity? If the answer is pure, then the transaction is lawful. If there is shadow, even subtle, it is better to abstain, even if apparent gain is lost. Even more importantly, the just merchant recognizes the dharma of silence. He does not argue unnecessarily. He does not boast of his righteousness, does not pressure to persuade, nor seduce with artifice. His word is clear, his dealings clean, and his presence serene, because he has understood that true power is not in the skill of closing deals, but in the capacity of his aura to bless what it touches. There are also disciples called to be intermediaries between producers and the needy, between talents and opportunities, between ideas and forms. These are merchants of the spirit, even as they deal in goods. They must learn to guard the justice of both sides, taking no part for the stronger or the one who pays more, but for balance itself. Their task is more difficult, but also more luminous. They are bridges where others see walls, vessels connecting worlds. The Upanishads hint at this when they say, "The just one who eats from commerce without greed is nourished by Brahman." That is, the one who participates in the economy without being devoured by it becomes a channel of the divine. His shop is a temple, his coin a decree, his word the soul. In this time of confusion, where veils are torn and greed disguises itself as success, the presence of the just merchant and the hidden disciple is more necessary than ever, not as preachers, but as silent witnesses of a sacred economy. They teach by example that one can live in the world without being of it, that one can profit without losing the soul, that one can serve even while negotiating, that one can shine without dominating. Thus is revealed the mystery of the just merchant, not a slave to gold nor its enemy, but its conscious steward, one who walks among forms without clinging to any, who gives and receives without attachment, and who transforms every economic act into a vibrational offering to the balance of the universe. Chapter 8. The Cursed Houses, Blood-Stained Money, an inquiry into mansions, enterprises, and lineages that flourished upon the suffering of others. Their fall is inevitable. Nothing built upon weeping will be eternal. No fortune raised upon another's misery can endure beyond its illusory cycle. Cursed houses, be they palaces, commercial empires, aristocratic bloodlines, or illustrious surnames, are material structures that, though grand in appearance and externally solid, bear within their roots a hidden sin. The use of others' pain as a foundation, the sacrifice of lives, souls, or entire peoples for the ascent of a few. These are buildings of stone and gold, but with foundations of flesh and shadow. In the invisible realms, every action leaves a vibrational trail. And when wealth is amassed through slavery, war, usury, the exploitation of children, women, or entire bodies, a signal is imprinted on the etheric substance of the place, a silent, indelible mark that cries through the centuries. That mark eventually manifests as ruin, moral decay, madness, suicides, fires, disappearances, sterility, betrayals, rare illnesses, or sudden collapses that the ignorant call curses, without understanding that these are simply natural consequences of hidden causes. The Book of Karma proclaims, "The walls built with the weeping of the just shall fall with the breath of the wind of judgment." This phrase, whose literal meaning has been forgotten for centuries, describes with precision the destiny of cursed houses. They do not fall by accident nor by conspiracy, not even by divine punishment, but by the simple law of universal balance. The Dharma waits, but when it acts, it does so with rigor and without warning. Such houses may endure for 1, 2, or 3 generations, sometimes longer if their karma is diluted through partial acts of redemption. But sooner or later, the weight of sacrificed souls demands compensation. Then begins the cycle of return. The descendants, unaware of the causes, suffer without understanding. Fortune fades, wealth is squandered, marriages fail, children rebel, companies collapse, lineages vanish. And all of this not by chance, but because the stored pain, held as a vibrational debt, returns to be settled. In the ancient Chaldean temples, initiates were taught to read the auras of places, magnetic fields surrounding buildings and lands. They could see dark stains like living clouds clinging to mansions built on theft, murder, or pacts with lower forces. Such houses became uninhabitable over time, even if they showed no physical cracks. For the soul dwelling in a space soaked in others' pain begins to absorb that pain and replicate it in their own life. Thus, cursed houses also become curses for those who possess them. Businesses founded on labor exploitation, animal suffering, commercial deceit, manipulative advertising, arms trafficking, or human trade, though they may enjoy temporary power, carry within themselves the seed of their own dissolution. For money gained in such ways is not vibrationally pure, and as it circulates, it contaminates. Employees suffer from stress without visible cause. Directors endure insomnia, founders' children reject the legacy, and headquarters burn or are plagued by internal strife. What the world calls a corporate crisis is, in these cases, the manifestation of the hidden law at work. Entire bloodlines have lived for centuries in opulence, sustained by colonial plunder, land seizure, and the destruction of ancestral cultures. Apparently successful, they carry in their genetic memory the vibration of the inflicted pain, and this vibration manifests in various ways. Children who do not want to live, descendants who take their own lives without reason, incurable illnesses, or the inability to feel genuine love. What was taken by force is now returned through emptiness. The Book of Kian suggests that the earth speaks in silence, and the soul of places defends itself. This phrase is key, for lands, houses, businesses, families are living entities in the etheric planes. When they are wounded, they do not forget. They accumulate vibrational memory. The bloodshed, the ignored weeping, the systematic exploitation, all of it is etched into their subtle field and after a cycle is returned. But there is a way out. There is redemption. The law is not vengeance. It is balance. If the lineage, the enterprise, the house, the heir acknowledges the origin of their fortune, if they devote themselves to repair, to restitution, to service, then the purification begins. There are mansions once cursed that now serve as hospitals, shelters, art centers, houses of wisdom. There are surnames that once inspired fear and now serve in silence. Karma does not demand destruction, it demands rectification. The first step is truth, to acknowledge the origin, to cease calling family legacy what was plunder, to stop calling enterprise what was servitude, to no longer romanticize history. Then comes restitution. If one has stolen, one must return. If one has exploited, one must serve. If one has killed, one must heal. And finally, consecration. The new cycle must serve the good. The business must become a channel of justice. The house must shelter elevated souls. The lineage must give light. Disciples of the path, those who are to inherit blood-stained fortunes, must be especially careful. Renunciation is not enough. Sometimes renouncing is merely avoidance. The legacy must be taken and transformed, not destroyed but transmuted, to make impure gold into an instrument of redemption. Only thus can the cycle of repetition be broken. Cursed houses will fall unless they are turned into temples. That is the only exit. And their fall, when it comes, is not tragedy. It is liberation. For what was built upon blood must return to the earth, and only the fire of consciousness can cleanse what water cannot reach. Thus is revealed the mystery of the cursed houses, that suffering does not disappear when buried beneath marble, that blood is not erased with contracts, that human justice may forget, but etheric memory does not, and all that was stained must be purified or destroyed for the soul to breathe again. Chapter 9. Chosen poverty and renounced wealth. The vow of poverty as an initiatory shield, voluntary renunciation as a spiritual investment. In a world whose dominant vibration is accumulation, where the desire to possess is presented as virtue and material success as a sign of merit, the conscious decision to live with little or nothing rises as one of the most radical forms of hidden power. This renunciation, far from weakness, is a mystical affirmation, the silent declaration that the soul has understood the unreality of objects and the futility of possession. Chosen poverty is not the misery of the forsaken, nor the result of laziness, nor the condition of the defeated. It is a deliberate act of the soul that has seen, and upon seeing, has chosen not to return. It is the vibratory shield of the initiate, the protective wall against the attacks of desire, the energetic field where the ego cannot feed its illusion of dominion. The Vedas declare it with severe beauty. He who owns nothing, fears nothing, and he who fears nothing, obeys nothing. Within this teaching lies the esoteric root of the vow of poverty, to free the soul from the invisible shackles of having. For every object possessed creates a bond. Every property establishes a field of responsibility. Every coin is a tie, and although not impure in itself, all demand attention, vigilance, and defense. The soul that owns them without detachment becomes trapped in a net of 1,000 subtle threads that prevent it from flying. The ancient Essenes, in their hidden communities near the Dead Sea, instructed their disciples to leave everything behind before entering the inner circle, not as punishment nor dogma, but as purification. The aspirant had to leave their name, their trade, their family, their possessions, and in doing so, crossed a vibratory threshold from citizen to disciple, from man to channel, from possessor to servant. The vow of poverty, when true, is not spoken aloud nor written on paper. It is sealed in the aura. It is an agreement between the lower soul and the higher self. It is not about dressing in rags or living in destitution. It is about rejecting all possession as a source of identity, all gold as a purpose, all objects as symbols of worth. The initiatory poor may live in a house or a cave. They may have what is necessary or even more, but nothing possesses them. They live in inner freedom. In the hidden records of Tibet, there is the story of a master who, upon receiving the inheritance of a deceased disciple, ordered it all burned, not out of contempt for the object, but to break the vibration of attachment left in the community. Then, with empty hands, he rebuilt the ashram from the spontaneous gifts of the soul. Such an act, incomprehensible to the eyes of the world, was in truth a magical operation. It freed the lineage from vibratory debt and established a new frequency of purity. Voluntary renunciation of wealth is a spiritual investment, because everything given to the fire of detachment returns as light, not in the same life, not in the same form, but in vibratory equivalence. He who gives without holding back will receive when the time is right. He who lets go through vision will be sustained by the law. For the universe does not abandon those who have left everything to serve the truth. Every renunciation is a seed sown in the causal field, and that seed, though invisible, germinates. The Bhagavad Gita teaches us, it is not he who renounces action, but he who renounces the fruit of action, the true renunciate. This distinction is crucial. It is not enough to be poor. Many live in lack but dream of wealth, envy the rich, fear scarcity. They have not renounced, their soul remains trapped. The true renunciate is not defined by their bank account, but by their vibration. They do not desire, do not need, do not compare. They accept what comes, release what goes, and remain centered. There are times when wealth must be rejected. There are others when it must be managed wisely. The vow of poverty is neither universal nor eternal. Some disciples take it for a lifetime, others for a cycle. Some break it consciously once they have developed total detachment. What matters is not the outward vow, but inner freedom. There are wise ones who manage millions without staining their aura. There are ascetics who, without touching gold, are full of desire. The criterion is not what is visible, but the vibration. Hermetic texts speak of solar poverty, the condition in which the soul, illuminated by the vision of the One, no longer seeks to possess, but to channel. It clings to nothing because it knows everything belongs to it. It retains nothing because it knows all flows. It fears no loss because it is already merged. That poverty is power, for no tyrant can buy it, no fear can bend it, no praise can distract it. The disciples of the future, those who will be called to guard the mysteries, must pass this test. They will be tempted by wealth, recognition, and material security. And many will fall because they have not learned the art of renunciation. But those who pass the test, who say no to gold, no to applause, no to comfort, not out of contempt, but out of vision, will inherit what the world does not know, peace that does not depend, joy that does not change, wealth that cannot be counted. Thus is revealed the mystery of chosen poverty and renounced wealth, that it is not loss but conquest, not emptiness but fullness, that every object let go unties a knot, that every coin cast into the fire becomes light, and only the empty soul can be filled by the Spirit. Chapter 10. Money as a test on the initiatory path. Every adept will be tempted by material power. Here is revealed how to respond, and why that response defines their eternal destiny. There is no true initiate who has not faced, at some stage of their ascent, the most silent and dangerous of all trials, the temptation of gold. This does not appear as a simple offer of external wealth, but as an archetypal manifestation of the power of condensation, the ability to attract and shape energy into matter, structure, and dominion. It is the test of the fourth threshold, where the soul is no longer tempted by coarse pleasures, but by the mirage of doubling good through material means, the trap of believing one can serve the light through the weapons of darkness. Every consciousness that has attained a certain degree of spiritual power, whether through esoteric knowledge, vibratory control, mastery of forms, or access to higher energies, inevitably attracts the possibility to mobilize wealth. And the testing ground is precisely this. What will the soul do with that power? Will it be seduced by the illusion of controlling, accumulating, and sustaining structures? It will be reminded that all that is material is transient illusion, and that the soul must not possess, but channel. The Gospel of the Nazarenes, hidden for centuries, preserves these words. He who has conquered the flesh and the world will be tested with gold, and if he touches it with desire, he will fall. This fall is invisible to the profane eye. The initiate may continue preaching, writing, teaching, founding works, but their soul has lost its axis, because desire, even when disguised as service, is but a reflection of ego, and where there is ego there is shadow. The great adepts, those who have touched the threshold of realization, have been tempted not by vulgar gold, but by vibratory offerings of power, empires, disciples, fame, political vision, social structure, access to Earth's resources. Every adept who has unleashed forces on the inner planes sooner or later sees that the world seeks them, that the wealthy offer their treasures, that governments consult them, that the masses acclaim them. It is the moment when the path splits. If they accept, if they begin to build with gold, if they enter the logic of accumulation, even if for good, they have been caught. Because the soul manifests not through desire, but through renunciation, and every form born of desire, even when cloaked in lofty purpose, carries in its core the seed of its destruction. Therefore, in ancient schools, when a disciple reached a certain level of inner power, they were withdrawn from the world, not as punishment, but so they could stabilize their vibration before facing the test of gold. In the caves of Central Asia, in the underground monasteries of Egypt, in the sealed chambers of the Himalayas, masters placed the neophyte before visions of fortunes, palaces, armies, empires. If their aura shifted, if their breath changed, if their desire activated, the fire was taken from them. Only those who remained unaltered, who saw wealth as dust, as mist, as a symbol without value, could cross the threshold. And it is not enough to reject gold. Some do so out of fear, false humility, incapacity, or insecurity. That renunciation is not a conquered test. True victory is to regard wealth with equanimity, neither desiring it nor rejecting it, knowing how to use it when necessary, release it when required, destroy it if the mission demands, all without attachment, fear, or shadow. The Mahatma wrote in a letter to a disciple, "When the world comes to offer you its treasure, do not flee. Look inside the treasure. If you see your reflection, you are not ready. If you see nothing, you are free." This teaching holds the secret. Gold is not the problem is the reflection. If the soul sees itself through what it possesses, it has fallen. If it remains invisible within the visible, it has overcome. This test is subtle because it appears as an opportunity to serve. Many fall because they want to do good, found schools, create networks, help thousands. But the desire to help can also be a desire to control. And every material structure, if not born from the pure vision of the higher self, becomes a prison. Great religions fell this way. They began as light, ended as institutions, and every institution, no matter how sacred it seems, already holds the shadow of its end. Therefore, the true adept prefers silent action. They do not accumulate, do not centralize, do not build empires. They are like the air, passing, transforming, moving on. Like the sun, they give without holding back. Like fire, they purify without possessing. They know the world will be transformed not by gold but by vibration, and that their task is not to create structures but to elevate consciousness. Yet, if the Dharma demands managing resources, they do so with absolute detachment. They offer their energy, their hands, their discernment, but never their soul. They do not identify with the gold that passes through them. They are not disturbed if it comes. They do not worry if it leaves. They are a channel, a bridge, not a container. And when their life ends, they leave no inheritance, not because they despise those left behind, but because they know what they brought into the world belongs to no one. Gold, knowledge, work, vibration, all returns to the One. For the true initiate leaves no monuments, only echoes. Thus is revealed the mystery of the test of gold on the initiatory path, that it is not gold that tempts, but the hidden desire to be something through it. That material power is always a mirror, and only he who does not see himself in it can overcome it. That the soul's eternal destiny is not decided by poverty or wealth, but by the vibration with which it regards both. Chapter 11. The Rich Souls and the Poor Children. Why is it that sometimes the wise are born in misery while the ignorant reign? Secrets of crossed karma. To the profane eye, injustice is the face of the world. The noble suffer in poverty while fools live surrounded by abundance. The virtuous are persecuted and the corrupt rise. The one who gives everything receives nothing, while the one who takes without measure accumulates all. But this apparent chaos is nothing more than the outward expression of an invisible architecture, whose lines were drawn by the past actions of each soul, and the intricate webs woven that are no longer remembered. What man calls injustice is, in reality, ignorance of crossed karma. Karma, as a universal law of balance, does not act in a straight line, nor within a single lifetime. It unfolds in spirals, cycles, and multidimensional networks, where the effects of one life can manifest in another, and the debts of a lineage can be settled through a child, a grandchild, a descendant who incarnates to restore what they did not commit, but to which they are bound by invisible ties. Thus we see wise men born in huts, initiates growing up in hunger, prophets born to beggars, not as punishment, but as service, not by mistake, but by pre-incarnatory choice. Because there are souls who have reached such a degree of vision that in choosing their descent into the world, they seek not comfort, but opportunity to heal, to teach, to vibrate as light amidst the shadow. Their poverty is not defeat, it is a spiritual stratagem. The Zohar states that the highest crown is born in the dust. This teaching does not refer to material dust, but to the state of vibratory humility from which the soul can act unseen, without arousing greed, without attracting the interference of dark forces. For the elevated soul born into wealth is often quickly besieged by dense influences, while the one who grows in poverty is forged in silence, renunciation, and clarity. On the other hand, many fools, young souls still asleep, incarnate in inherited fortunes, beautiful bodies, and favorable environments, not by merit, but by karmic debt that life must settle. They are like children given a costly toy so that by breaking it, they learn its fragility. Their apparent power is not a gift but a test, and most fall. Why does this happen? Because karma does not distribute rewards but experiences. It neither punishes nor rewards, it rebalances. Sometimes the soul needs to live the experience of luxury to detach from it. Sometimes it needs to live in misery to remember compassion. Sometimes it needs to have everything to understand that nothing is enough, and sometimes it must have nothing to discover that the essential was never outside. The disciple who sees these realities with the eyes of wisdom neither envies nor despises. They know that everyone is where they must be, that the wealth of the ignorant is their trap, and the poverty of the wise their shield. That the beggar may be a master on a mission and the banker a soul in their last attempt before falling. Nothing is as it seems. That is why the true occultist never judges from what is visible. Bharabat Gete says it among men, "I dwell in the heart of the humble, not in the rich, nor the wise, nor the strong, but in the humble, because humility is the vibration closest to the source." Many are born poor simply to protect their humility, so they are not absorbed by the illusion of power, not dragged by the mirage of having. Yet not all poverty is noble, nor all wealth a curse. There are poor who are victims of their own laziness, resentment, and inner violence. There are rich who have arrived there by merit, by white karma, by service. Therefore, true discernment must go beyond appearances. Each case is unique. Each incarnation is a sacred design. What we call crossed karma is the intertwining of multiple vibratory threads. Past actions of the individual soul, their family lineage, their nation, previous incarnations, and the conscious or unconscious pacts made with other souls. Thus, a high soul may incarnate as the child of a criminal to help redeem that line, or a dark soul may be born among the wise as a last chance to awaken. Nothing is chance. Everything is woven. In the ashrams of northern India, it is taught that at the moment of conception, the soul unites with the karma of the mother, the father, the place, and the time, and often accepts incarnation under adverse conditions to accelerate its purification. Sometimes it asks to be born into misery to avoid distractions. Sometimes it chooses harsh parents to strengthen its will. Sometimes it chooses pain as a reminder, because the soul, when seen from above, does not fear suffering. It recognizes it as a tool. There are disciples who ask, "Why, if I am just, does life deny me the basics?" And the answer in many cases is because you have not yet understood that the basics are not external, because what you need is not more food or more shelter, but more inner light. Because your soul did not come to receive but to radiate. Because well-lived poverty opens portals that wealth never shows. And there are others who say, "Why, if I was corrupt, have I received fortune?" And the answer is because the law allows you once again to face yourself in the mirror of power. And if this time you fall, you will fall deeper. But if you awaken, all your fortune will be a channel of redemption. This is how justice acts, not with punishment, but with reflection. Thus is revealed the mystery of the rich souls and the poor children, that there is no contradiction, only perfection. That the wise in poverty is not condemned but protected. That the ignorant in wealth is not blessed but tested. That the true measure of the soul is not what it has, but what it vibrates. Chapter 12. The Economy of Angels and the Ashrams. How the masters of the Himalayas manage the energy of value on higher planes. The world perceived by the senses, dense, material, and governed by accumulation, is but the thin crust of a greater structure, invisible to the untrained eye. Beyond banks, markets, bullion, coins, and contracts, there exists a higher economic order ruled not by need, but by harmony, not by possession, but by vibration, not by scarcity, but by the law of spiritual distribution. This order is known among initiates as the economy of angels, a system of circulating energies where value is not measured by scarcity nor fixed by market forces, but calibrated by dharmic usefulness, purity of intent, and resonance with the evolutionary plan. This system, neither utopia nor allegory but active reality on subtle planes, directs each energy to where it is most useful. Karma is given to those who can best multiply it, and every act automatically generates its compensation on inner planes, without the need for external accounting. Angels, not as devotional figures but as conscious entities of high vibrational rank, do not handle gold or currency, but flows of refined pranic energy, what esoteric science calls the Akashic currents of merit. These currents arise from pure sacrifice, altruistic thought, and just action without expectation, stored in vibratory fields that certain masters guard and redistribute according to the real merits and needs of souls. The role of these Himalayan masters, known in ancient texts as Mahas or Great Souls, is not to interfere with human will or arbitrarily bestow gifts, but to facilitate the flow of these merits where affinity, purpose, and capacity for action exist. If a disciple has sown noble causes but finds themselves temporarily blocked in the material world, these masters can unlock channels on higher planes, open doors, inspire decisions in others that benefit the disciple without immediate understanding of the invisible cause behind the new circumstance. This subtle distribution is called in the ashrams the rain of Dharma, the sudden arrival of support, clarity, resources, people, or synchronicities that allow the soul to continue its service. Yet this rain cannot be summoned by desire nor manipulated by ego. It descends only upon those who vibrate in silent surrender, aligned with higher purpose and detached from fruits. Hidden ashrams, both in their etheric form and in physical manifestations in remote regions of Tibet, Kashmir, or Mongolia, operate under this superior economy. There, no currency is exchanged, no trade conducted, and nothing hoarded. Every need is met according to its nature. Every contribution is measured by its vibration. Every object has a closed use, never trivial, never possessive. Clothes, food, books, instruments, all circulate in service. Nothing accumulates, nothing is wasted. Value in these planes does not depend on rarity or ostentation. A cup may be worth more than a ruby if used by a bodhisattva in contemplation. A robe more than a treasure if woven by hands vibrating with mantras. For value there is impregnated by vibration, not scarcity. Energy determines the invisible price. Disciples entering the ashrams undergo deep re-education. They learn not to ask, not to desire, not to take more than offered, to receive with silent gratitude, to give with absolute detachment, and never to keep any object for security or preference. Each thing is sacred, not for what it is, but for the use given to it. Personal possession is an unnecessary burden. Freedom is cultivated through surrender. This economy of light extends to intermediate planes where invisible servants dwell, lesser beings, conscious elementals, subtle builders who collaborate in higher plans. They are not paid but respond to the vibration of purpose. They are drawn to those who emit clarity, order, and love. They avoid those vibrating in chaos, fear, greed, or deviation. True adepts working in the visible world, whether in human form or covert missions, are also governed by this economy. They are sustained not by salaries or investments, but by flows manifesting according to the merit of their acts. Sometimes they receive what they need without seeking it. Sometimes nothing comes, yet they continue trusting that the Lord does not abandon those who serve without desire. Just as there are centers of accumulated negative karma, ego banks, so to speak, there are also centers of accumulated merit. Invisible sanctuaries, where elevated vibrations generated by anonymous acts of sacrifice, silent love, and unrecognized compassion are stored. These soul treasures are available to be used by those in critical planetary moments. Many disciples, unknowingly, have received assistance from these invisible funds. A journey inexplicably halted, an illness cured without medical reason, an improbable meeting opening a door. These are expressions of the superior economy acting on lower planes, adapting to real need, never to desire. The error of the modern world has been to try to imitate this economy without understanding its vibrational basis. Talk of equity, redistribution, and social justice abounds, but until intention is purified and vibration raised, every economy will be a simple repetition of accumulation and loss. True balance does not come from external laws, but from internal harmony. Therefore, the disciple who wishes to live according to the higher law must begin with themselves, giving without expectation, receiving without attachment, using without pollution, releasing without pain. They must be a channel, not a vessel, a bridge, not a wall, movement, not retention. Thus, their life becomes an extension of the economy of the ashrams, even while living in the world and working with currency. Thus is revealed the mystery of the economy of angels. It is not about wealth or poverty, but vibration. True value is not bought but emitted, and only those who have renounced all possession can be stewards of the invisible treasure. Chapter 13. The Bazaar of Reincarnations. What you have given or taken always returns. How the economic balance accumulates between lives and how to recognize its signs. The human soul, wrapped in the illusion of linear continuity, does not realize that its story does not begin with the cradle nor end with the coffin. Each existence is but a scene within a greater drama, a script written in vibrations rather than words, with an account not measured in banks but in the ethers of the house. This plane of universal memory records with unalterable precision every act of giving and every act of taking, every gesture of offering and every act of usurpation, every time a human being tipped the scales towards good or towards selfishness. Thus the soul's economic balance is formed, not to be understood in financial terms, but as the sum of energies the soul has mobilized through its lifetimes, whether to build or to destroy, to free or to bind. This balance does not vanish with death. It accompanies the soul through the intermediate worlds and becomes one of the main factors shaping the circumstances of its next incarnation. The ancients called this process the Bazaar of Reincarnations, not mockingly but as a profound metaphor, because as the soul approaches the gateway of rebirth, it does not choose randomly. What it faces is a set of possibilities, a kind of vibratory market where material, familial, cultural and bodily conditions are offered as options coherent with its accumulated karma. There is no arbitrariness. What is received was sown. What is missing was withheld. What hurts was caused. In this bazaar, a soul rich in karma, that is, filled with acts of selfless love, pure service, and lived truth, may incarnate in apparently difficult conditions, not as punishment, but because it has chosen to renounce privileges in order to help others. Yet, if it wishes, it may also choose favorable environments, if it has earned rest, or if its mission requires visibility. On the other hand, a soul burdened with dense karma, especially economic karma, one that took without giving, exploited, lied, or accumulated excessively, will be compelled to incarnate in circumstances that balance that imbalance. The Book of 100 states it thus: "He who took bread will be born hungry. He who locked another away will be born bound. He who denied shelter will be born naked. But he who gave in silence will be born with what was never asked for." This law does not punish. It restores. Today's poverty is often the answer to yesterday's greed. The unjust opulence of one life becomes impotence, dependency, or illness in another. Yet not all manifests directly. The soul's economic balance can express itself in subtler ways. Some, without being poor, live in constant anxiety. Others, having done no harm in this life, suffer inexplicable losses. Others, having what they need, cannot hold on to their possessions, as if an invisible force prevented them from prospering. In all these cases, what manifests is the hidden balance: ancient debts, broken promises, unredeemed vows, unatoned actions. Just as there are debts, there are also vibratory credits. Those who gave without expecting, who protected, cared, and supported, reap fruits sometimes immediately, sometimes later. They may receive support without asking, love without seeking, unexpected resources, doors that open with ease. This is not luck, it is harvest. How to recognize the signs of this hidden balance? 1. Disproportionate reactions in the economic environment. If all effort is useless, if money slips away without visible cause, if abundance never arrives despite hard work, there may be a vibratory debt. 2. Invisible presences blocking the soul, trapped in unresolved bonds, old partners, enemies, or victims from other lives claiming justice, may appear as psychic resistance. 3. Fear of money and unconscious rejection of prosperity. Many souls who abused wealth in past lives develop blocks against it now as a form of spiritual self-protection. 4. Unusual ease in attracting resources without rational explanation signals invisible merit silently accumulated and returning. The soul awakened to this law must then become its own accountant, not with guilt or fear, but with vision. It must examine its relationship with value, what it takes, what it gives, what it holds on to, what it fears to lose. Each question reveals the hidden balance. Once revealed, restoration can begin. How to restore balance? Act with conscious generosity, not only materially but vibrationally. Listen, accompany, support, share. Release unnecessary possessions not as penance but as vibrational transmutation. Avoid judging those who have or have not, for judgment anchors the soul in duality and perpetuates karma. Consecrate the use of money. Every coin spent in service cuts karmic threads. Masters teach that all economic karma can be redeemed in this very life, if lived with awareness. Sometimes one true act of giving can erase 10 lifetimes of selfish accumulation. But that act must come from the soul, not calculation. It must be total, not partial, and sustained over time, not reaction, but way of being. The bazaar of reincarnations is not punishment, but a school. It places us repeatedly in the experiences necessary to free ourselves, sometimes as the rich, to learn detachment, sometimes as the poor to remember, sometimes as merchants, sometimes as beggars, but always with the opportunity to restore. Thus unfolds the mystery of the bazaar of reincarnations. All you have given or taken returns. The soul keeps a record more exact than any human accounting, and if you wish to change your economic destiny, begin by changing your vibration. Chapter 14. Souls bearing the gold of others. When a soul is born to repair the financial mistakes of its lineage, spiritual generational debt. Among the countless invisible ties that bind souls as they journey through the ages, few are as dense, persistent, and complex as generational economic bonds. Because gold, when obtained through imbalance, does not vanish with the death of the one who took it. It clings like a vibratory shadow to the bloodline, the surname, the memory, the magnetic field of an entire lineage. Thus, it is not uncommon to find souls who, despite having caused no harm in this life, carry the weight of a fortune ill-gotten or the misery derived from unredeemed wealth. These souls are what the masters call karmic carriers of the lineage, incarnated servants who, by pre-birth choice or by law of vibratory affinity, are born into families whose past economic actions remain untransmuted. They come to restore what was unbalanced, to settle what was stolen, to cleanse what was stained, not with words or accusations, but through acts of light, detachment, service, and silent consecration. There are houses where gold was amassed at the cost of another's hunger, lands taken by deceit, contracts signed in blood, fortunes built on the lament of slaves, peasants, and exploited workers. And though the surname may be illustrious and the facade respectable, the vibration of those acts persists in the lineage's etheric body, generating a spiritual debt that cannot be erased with money or superficial charity. That debt can only be redeemed by a just soul born within the same line, who consciously carries the weight and dissolves it through noble deeds. The signs of this condition are subtle but recognizable to the eye that knows how to see. The soul is born into a wealthy family, but feels from youth an instinctive rejection of accumulation, discomfort with luxury, and an inexplicable anguish toward money. Sometimes surrounded by abundance, it cannot benefit from it without guilt or physical pain. At times, it is born into the ruins of a once great fortune and senses the task of rebuilding it, not for itself, but to redeem it. It may manifest spiritual inclinations amidst materialistic environments and suffer the disdain or misunderstanding of its lineage. These souls are not cursed, they are on a mission. They are not victims of the past, but instruments of balance. But if they do not awaken, if they do not understand their task, if they surrender to repeating family patterns, the cycle continues. The same falls, the same ruins, the same tragedies reappear, because karma does not break by itself. It requires awareness, action, and offering. In the ashrams, it is taught that every family debt has 3 paths of redemption. 1. Conscious understanding of the fortune's origin. The soul must study its tree, its history, not to blame, but to understand. 2. The consecration of part of the inherited wealth or its karmic residues to works that restore balance, just aid, education, healing, rescue of what was oppressed. 3. Personal detachment. Even when managing assets, the soul must remain free internally, not identifying with power or gold. Sometimes the repair is so profound that the soul completely renounces the legacy, gives it away, donates it, disperses it, and begins a new life. In other cases, it keeps what is necessary, but changes its use, vibration, and purpose. Both are valid paths if done with light. The Talmud teaches that the guilt of the parents does not fall upon the children unless they continue their works. This truth is also an esoteric law. No one inherits the karma of their lineage by imposition. It is inherited only if one vibrates at the same frequency, identifies with the inheritance, and repeats it without transformation. But if the soul rises and breaks the pattern, if it acts from its higher self, then not only does it free itself, it frees its ancestors as well. There are souls who have incarnated solely to close an account. They appear, live briefly, perform an act of justice, sometimes in silence, sometimes at the cost of their life, and then depart. They are compensatory souls, often misunderstood, but without them balance cannot be restored. And just as there are those who carry ill-gotten gold, there are also those who inherit vibratory poverty generated by the acts of their forebears, parents who destroyed fortunes through vice or deviation, grandparents who generated good lineages that drifted from service. These souls are born into lack not as punishment, but because they assumed the task of restoring the flow, and they do so with dignity, effort, vision, and without resentment. Every step they take is an offering. At the highest levels of the path, the soul that has healed its lineage becomes a protector. Its very presence cleanses, balances, consecrates. Where there was once shadow, now there is light. Where there was abuse, now generosity. Where there was greed, now wisdom. Because the just soul does not merely pay debts, it transforms. Thus is revealed the mystery of souls bearing the gold of others, that no fortune is without consequence, no inheritance without vibration, that every account closes sooner or later, and that some souls, out of love, choose to pay what is not theirs to free those who still cannot do so themselves. Chapter 15, The Final Payment. Breaking free from the cycle of karmic currency. How to cut the thread that binds the soul to the need to have, possess, or depend. The economy of nirvana. Every flow of wealth, every possession, every exchange, every desire to have or fear of losing spins like a perpetual cycle in the economic samsara of incarnated souls. This cycle, which on the surface seems natural and even necessary for material life, becomes for the soul seeking liberation a burning golden wheel, where every acquisition generates a debt and every loss sparks a new longing. Breaking free from this circuit is not about impoverishing oneself or despising matter, but about performing the subtlest and highest operation on the path, to cut with enlightened will the hidden thread that binds the soul to the illusory reflection of having. Karmic currency is more than money. It is the vibratory symbol of all that the soul believes it needs to feel complete. It can take the form of property, food, a name, admiration, titles, bodies, places. Everything the self considers mine is an extension of that thread, and while that thread persists, the soul will spin life after life around what it possesses, seeking, losing, struggling, fearing, repeating. Nirvana, not as a religious concept but as a pure vibratory state, begins the very moment the soul stops depending. Not when it renounces objects, but when it understands that no object can give what it already is. Nothing external can add to, take away from, or define it. It is then, and only then, that the karmic flow of having halts, the account closes. The soul neither owes nor collects, neither desires nor fears. The Perya Ichida teaches, the word not spoken is the one that creates. The soul that takes nothing is the one that truly possesses. These veiled words point to the central mystery. True possession begins when the need to possess ends. This is not artificial asceticism nor disdain for life, but inner realization. True wealth consists in knowing that nothing belongs to you. And yet, everything is within your reach when you no longer desire it. And how is this state reached? First, by understanding that all forms are transient, that what is held today dissolves tomorrow, that every object has its time, use, and end. The wise do not cling because they see impermanence in every form. They receive with gratitude, use with awareness, and let go without pain. Second, by discerning the origin of every desire, asking, from where do I desire this? From fear, from comparison, from emptiness. If the answer does not arise from the deep self, it is released. Desire, not suppressed but transmuted, becomes freedom. Third, by offering, not once but as a way of life. Each time the soul gives without expectation, it cuts a karmic thread, and every thread cut is a step outside the cycle. One can give money, time, attention, knowledge, tenderness. Every true offering is karmic cancellation. Fourth, by dwelling in the void with peace, accepting moments when there is nothing, nothing arrives, nothing flows, as opportunities to be with oneself, without objects. If the soul can rest in the void without anxiety, it has broken the final bond. In the ashrams of light, it is taught that the liberated soul no longer generates economic karma. It may use objects but does not cling to them. It may manage possessions but does not consider them its own. It can live among kings or beggars without its vibration being disturbed, because it has understood that the only real possession is being, and all else is loaned by the great game. Some souls reach this point after centuries of commerce, bankruptcies, riches, and ruin. Others achieve it in a few lives if their vision is clear. But all, before entering the economy of nirvana, must settle the final balance, the need. That invisible debt is not cancelled by external acts, but by a single affirmation, I am, and that is enough. The Buddha expressed it in these words, I have nothing, I lack nothing, therefore I am everything. This is not a devotional phrase, but a vibratory declaration. One who can live within it already inhabits the realm where karma no longer accumulates. And though walking among men, their economy is that of the spirit. In this state, the soul no longer asks, what do I have, but what am I? And upon discovering that it is plenitude, that it is channel, that it is mirror of the One, it ceases to seek. It does not beg for affection. It does not exchange to gain. It does not work for reward. Its action is offering, its word, consecration, its life, the economy of being. Thus, the mystery of the final payment is revealed. There is no deeper debt than believing you need something to be. The soul is freed not when it no longer has needs, but when it no longer identifies with them. And only then, when it owns nothing, owes nothing, expects nothing, does it become the heir of nirvana. Amen.